And I don't blame them. I mean, here in Nova Scotia, if you get tarnished with being an enemy of the premier, you're probably not going to be employed any longer anywhere.
Okay, so fair enough. And you went fishing with Tim. Hopefully, he doesn't think the water's too dangerous and start banning that as well. Maybe he won't because he likes to fish. So, Marty, what's the difference between a mandate, a proclamation, and a law, or the differences between those three things?
Sorry there, Jason. I just getting unmuted here. What at issue here is an order, and that order was enacted ostensibly under the Forests Act. And so that's an order by the Minister of Natural Resources there in Nova Scotia. The difference is from a legal perspective and how you challenge that, but from a legally binding perspective, the force of law would apply to them all equally. And of course, from a constitutional perspective, the Constitution overrides legislation orders as well. So there's not a whole lot of relevance to the law other than that it's the Minister of Natural Resources who's in that seat to ostensibly exercise this authority to issue a travel restriction when it's, quote, necessary for the protection of the woods. And that's where an expert like Mr. McIsaac would come in and say whether it's, quote unquote, necessary for the protection of the woods to ban people from walking in the woods. We think it's the exact opposite, in fact. And so that's, for example, one of the ways that this would be different than a legislative law that's actually debated and passed. In this case, we have to know whether or not this order was even legitimately made under the authority of the Forests Act.
Will that be the first challenge, is to see if it's legitimately applied? Or is it going to be a rights challenge? It might be a little early to discuss what your strategy is on this one, but off the top of your head, what would be the first challenge for you?
Well, all of those challenges would likely go together. There would be a notice of challenge, whether you file that as a judicial review or whether you file that as a notice within the context of the prosecution. I think those details are being worked out, and I'm sure there'll be more discussion on that. But they would likely be argued together at the same hearing. But generally, you have to find that the order has the jurisdiction of the legislature.
Okay, so we have a small little issue with your connection, Marty, which I think we got the gist of it there, but it's going to all come up basically at the same time. So, Jeff, on the 12th of September, are we expecting to have any hearing, or is this going to be setting down what your plans are? Like, are you guilty, not guilty? Are you paying the fine? Like, is this going to be just one of the steps in the process?
My understanding, based on the way that it was explained to me by the conservation officers who issued the ticket, was that I had until that date to submit my notice of intent to contest the fine. And then once that was done, then they would schedule a trial and give me a court date.
Okay, so this can move along pretty quickly, and moot or not. Is it October 15th, the date that they say that this order is coming down?
Actually, I don't think they can argue mootness on this one because they're the ones dragging me into court. So it's a very different situation. Like, they tried to argue mootness the first time, and of course my argument was it's not moot because they're going to do it again. And I was right. And they said I didn't have standing because I didn't get a fine. So I went out and got the fine, but now it's them bringing me into court and I have to defend myself against their allegations. So they're not going to be able to argue standing or mootness or any of that nonsense this time around.
Now, does that put them in a position to be able to drop it and stop all of this? Or once the wheel started, once it's in motion, you guys keep going?
Actually, that was how I beat my mask violations in Nova Scotia. Was I made the mistake of submitting my defense to the courts ahead of time because I'm a military grievance guy, and I guess I didn't really understand at the time. I didn't fully appreciate that I should play that hand a little closer to my vest. So once they saw a charter defense on the record with the courts, I showed up for my first court date, which was for a charge of obstructing, and nobody showed up. So the judge just banged the gavel, said none of the witnesses are here, so you can be on your way. And the second time I got the $2,700 fine, I did the same thing. And the Crown withdrew the charges 2 days out from the court date. And I have said in open court while I was challenging this woods ban the first time that it came around, that was all a shakedown. And they knew none of this was ever going to hold up in court. They went ahead and did it anyway, and then withdrew the charges, so I never get my day in court. So it's definitely not beneath the province of Nova Scotia to get up to these kinds of greasy shenanigans. And I absolutely would not put it past them that they would withdraw the charges so that we never get to know whether it is in fact legal to go hiking in Canada. But only time will tell.
I got to tell you, Jeff, that's where I put my money, that they're not going to show up or they're going to withdraw it, because I don't think they want the precedents at all, and they know they're not going to win. That's my opinion on that one, but I think that's where this is going to head. So, Peter, we have things out here in Alberta, and I'm sure you have it as well, fire bans, where you're not allowed to start a fire, and this is how we control things out here in Alberta. So certainly you guys would have that. Why is that not sufficient to go ahead and protect the forests?
And that's the number one question to be asked. When the initial fire ban got put in place, I went to the FW Fire Weather Index data for the day, because that's what all firefighting and fire prevention measures are based on, basically all across North America and every province in Canada, is that they look at that data, and the data when the fire ban was put in place did not support a blanket ban, because 40% of the province was in what we call low to intermediate fire threat. And so it may have justified a ban in some of the areas listed as extreme. But what happened is when the premier, who I personally think is suffering from PTSD over what happened in 2023 based on comments he's made publicly, he decided to completely ignore the FWI system that all systems are generated, that all decisions are based on, and said, no, we can't have a repeat of 2023. He's told his MLAs that he's losing sleep over it. He has visions of charred bodies in homes, being drug out of it, and he has a real issue with it. And nobody in the province would fight back, or none of the MLAs would speak up, because if they do, historically, anybody that doesn't go along with the premier goes from that discussion directly under the bus. So people need to understand, Jason, in Nova Scotia, that when the premier makes a decision, then he advises the minister what he wants done. The minister advises the deputy minister who's told to make it happen. Then they go to the senior director and then to the manager. And if anybody along that chain decides not to do exactly what they're told, they're going under the bus, and they either may lose their job, or they'll be in a corner room somewhere not doing stuff. So what's been presented to the public is that the premier's making decisions based on information from his experts. And that's not the case at all, because this is top down. This is not bottom up. And so categorically, the premier's lying to the public.
Okay, so I think that's an excellent argument for Marty and the rest of the team at Justice Center to take a look at, that fire bans cover areas once it gets to a certain point where a fire risk gets high enough, the fire ban can take effect. And what you just said there was there were areas of Nova Scotia where it didn't reach that level. So the fire ban itself couldn't be put in place. So this is why they put in a broader provincial-wide ban for entering the forest. So I think that right there kills the entire argument that Nova Scotia may have, that this is to protect it from fires. Marty, your thoughts on that?
Yeah, once a liberty infringing order is made, then if that order is not in accordance with what's called the principles of fundamental justice, then that infringement is unconstitutional. And one of those principles of fundamental justice, Jason, is whether or not the order is overbroad. And I think in about 15 different ways, this order is overbroad. And the geographic areas that it applies to would be overbroad. It might be appropriate to have a fire ban in one area, as Mr. McIsaac says, not in another area. It might be appropriate to have a particular restriction, but when you start banning activities that have no relationship to fire, not only is it overbroad, it's also arbitrary, which is another principle of fundamental justice that you're not supposed to violate. Laws should not be arbitrary, they should not be overbroad, and they should not be grossly disproportionate. And I think, as Mr. Evely said earlier on another podcast, there's also an element to this case that, fining a gentleman $28,000 for a walk in the woods, we're going a little bit further than deterrence here. We are going into cruel and unusual punishment territory.
Well, speaking of cruel and unusual punishment, Jeff, how are you finding the response, some of the negative responses you've been receiving online, like from the bots and just comments in general? Like, are you surprised on the negativity you've received for you standing up for Nova Scotians?
Not at all. People have been really rotten for the last several years. There's always a few trolls in the mix. I'm actually surprised at how positive the response has been. I was reading and posting some troll comments earlier this morning. These people can't see themselves. It's insane. And one of the things that I said about the way that I approached this in calling ahead to make an appointment to get my $25,000 fine was that I wanted to bring the civil back into civil disobedience, because I feel that that's something that we've lost in the last several years in Canada, is our civility. Let's get back to being who we really are. And, we're going to disagree over things. Conflict is very natural. It's not something that can be avoided. It is something to be properly managed. Let's get back to doing that and being decent people again.
I agree. I just want to add, so we've got a question here saying that if it's struck down in Nova Scotia, will that apply to Newfoundland, New Brunswick, and as well others from considering and stopping this nonsense?
Well, we can throw that one to Marty,
Yeah.
but typically it would be persuasive, not binding, because these are jurisdictions that are crossing borders. If it was on a federal level, it would be binding. But Marty can correct me on that one.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Well, there we go. Exactly right. I don't get that comment too much.
Yeah, it
around
would
here,
be.
go ahead, Marty.
You're up, Marty.
Sorry about that, Jason. It would be binding from a constitutional perspective. If it got to the Supreme Court of Canada, of course, that's a little ways down the road. We have taken steps to write to New Brunswick. I think if they keep on the course they're on, they might find the same situation with a legal challenge coming down on their order as well. So potentially separate actions need to be launched against restrictions in Newfoundland and New Brunswick.
Well, the legal side of this is spreading faster than any wildfire or forest fire. And I think hopefully it's going to stop at this stage. And I know Ontario is even kind of talking about maybe doing it as well. But now we're hearing a lot of the legalities behind it and the common sense behind it. Like, if it's not high enough for a fire ban, then why in the world is there a ban at all? Okay, so Peter, as you're sitting there watching this breakdown, do you feel kind of sad that the organization that you used to work for that was protecting Nova Scotians are being used as a political tool like this?
Actually, it's why I took an early retirement, Jason. The day I could leave, I left, because the politics was getting involved in every facet of everything happening in the province. And I have to ashamedly admit that I helped put Tim Houston in power. And I mean, on a daily basis, he hoodwinked basically everyone down there to let us believe that he was actually a conservative by nature. He's more liberal than most liberals that I know. And so what happens is that, and he's very, he believes in ultimate power in the position that he's in. It's why I'm involved in another charter case that will be in court on September 5th for something that he did politically here in Nova Scotia. And so he has complete disregard for the charter. And I believe what Jeff is doing and what's going to happen here will be the final nail in the coffin of a politician who's actually he's basically off the rails. I've been involved in politics too, Jason, since 2012, behind the scenes, and I used to incorrectly think that I could change things from inside the system. And inside natural resources, the way I discuss the top-down situation, irregardless of your position inside that department, when the premier says jump to the minister, everybody jumps in sequence. And so you find yourself in a situation where you're demanded to do some things that just absolutely violate your moral code. And this would be one of them. This would be something, if I was still there, I'd be leaving over it, wouldn't do it.
Have you heard of anybody doing that, leaving over that or pushing back within the organization?
In Nova Scotia, nobody can afford to leave anything, buddy.
Mm-hmm.
Our cost of living down here under Tim Houston's gone through the ceiling. So if you have a good career, if you're anywhere near pension time, I haven't heard one other person at DNR speaking up. And as a matter of fact, I watched a good man stand up in front of a camera on Friday and knowingly deliver a message to Nova Scotia that as a professional, he would know that he was not telling the truth. But he's probably got a wife and family to feed. So that's the I guess that's what's held over the head of everybody working inside the government down here. And Tim Houston is absolutely ruthless. He's got a long history of if you disagree with him, you're going under the bus. And I'm no doctor, but like I said, what I saw his speeches online about losing sleep and stuff, that to me is PTSD from something that happened back in 2023. So when the first ban was, and by the way, one other thing, Jason, we've had multiple fire bans all through fire season. If the data in an area, so I'll point it out to the legal team, that we've had multiple bans, multiple situations, and the fire map that's put up digitally every day shows those areas that are banned, and it says in a big red section of the map, you cannot burn in this area. And then in other areas where the data suggests that it's intermediate, you can burn with very strict. You've got very strict guidelines that you have to do things by. But in Nova Scotia, back around 2013, we used to have a paper fire permit system where people had to come into a district office, and at least 50% of the time, I was able to talk them out of burning it all and said, look, why don't you wait till fire season's over? This can wait till then. Or why don't you cover it with plastic and burn it on it, or cover it with tarp, keep everything dry, and light the fire on when it's raining. And that's gone, along with our fire tower system, along with our only helitack team, along with our helicopter that had the greatest water drop capacity. And most of those decisions were all put in place after people were beating the climate change drum. And you would think that all across Canada, provinces would be ramping up their fire control structure. And instead, since 2010, basically going forward, every province has reduced their firefighting capabilities. So what's happening here, I was an investigator for a long time, and I'm looking at this from a 60,000 foot level. And what Jeff is doing and the team is doing is required to nail these guys down, because if this slippery slope isn't stopped now, there's going to be no end to it.
100% agree with that. And that's why as soon as I saw what Jeff did, I put out there, he's a hero, because he has taken a shot, he's taken a chance, and this is going to actually make change. And we're going to get some answers. Now, Jeff, one of the things that just felt like to me as an Albertan right away was like gun bans, because you're going after the wrong people. You're going after the people that actually don't cause the problem. So arsonists, lightning, other things cause a forest fire, not hikers. So it felt like it was definitely an overreach of rights. It felt like a gun ban because you're going after the wrong people. You can't criminalize criminals further, but you're criminalizing the non-criminals when you do stuff like that. This is what it felt like to me. Did that feel the same way to you?
Yeah, you might as well ban my car because drunk drivers exist. Just because there are people out there who will behave irresponsibly doesn't mean that you have to remove our rights to ensure we don't behave irresponsibly. Like, I think it's, I think I said something on X there yesterday about, especially with relation to how we see this totalitarian monkey see, monkey do across the Atlantic provinces now. I was listening to that woman, that odious hag in Newfoundland, talk about, how she wouldn't want to see anybody's lives ruined, their families ruined because they got a massive fine and went to prison. And she's just sitting, like, the banality of evil is on full display. That, and I think something like the what is the phrase that I'm reaching for here? It's in relation to their the paternalism of the guilty mind, I think is the way I said it on X. The paternalism of the guilty mind that is central to the essence of totalitarianism. That's something we see, that's run shot right through every dystopian novel. Basically, is that, like, I'm hurting you because out of love, right? Is the idea, and everybody loves Big Brother in 1984. And that is the final scene in Big Brother after Winston undergoes the torture in room 101 at the hands of his superior, O'Brien. And some of the things that, like what O'Brien is saying to him is, he'll say 2 + 2 = 5. Winston will say, yeah, 2 + 2 = 5. I believe it. And he'll say, oh, I know you say you believe it, but you don't really believe it. I'm going to make you perfect. I'm going to squeeze you empty and fill you with myself, me, my ego, be like me. That's the totalitarian impulse. There's, anything less than ideological homogeneity is absolutely unacceptable, and makes you the target for abuse. But he's doing it because he cares so much about Winston. And the last line in 1984 is that he loves Big Brother. Winston loves Big Brother now that he's undergone the torture, and now he understands. I mean, he's brainwashed, really. But when he sees a picture of Big Brother or something, he gets a little welled up, a little tear in his eye, because he understands now that it was his lack of love for Big Brother that led to his indiscretion. It mimics, a religion. Really, that's what totalitarian regimes do. Is they mimic religions where they put the state in place of God. And so, what I've engaged in, my subtle act of civil disobedience, is effectively heresy, and that's why you see the triggering taking place. Everybody's just going for the pitchforks and the torches, and they will say the most onerous things to me. Especially, they always go right after my veteran status, whatever the lowest possible road is, because they're self-righteous in their delusions. If they do it, then it is good. I am obviously, the heretic, and therefore I need to be expunged from their more pure society. So I find it all to be, very dangerous territory. Like, I don't think we've ever faced a challenge like this in Canada before. But at the same time, I think it's also the case that once a human lifetime, humanity needs to rise up and rights need to be asserted. They won't stand on their own. So we have to stand up and assert our rights. And this is just kind of our time in history to do that.
There's a comment here I want to share. Let's put the no back in Nova Scotia. No hiking, no fishing, no camping limited, no walking in the woods, no hunting, no freedom, no off-road vehicles, no common sense.
Thank you very much for that one, David. And one of the things, go ahead, Jeff.
I just said I love it.
Yeah. One of the things that popped up pretty quick was people were trying to create fundraisers for you. Now, I think you responded and said if you want to get involved, you can donate to the JCCF. Is that still standing?
Absolutely. And I'm going to make a note right now to pin a tweet to that effect, because I have already posted that several times, but I think it would be more effective if I just pin that on my X profile to make sure everybody is aware. I don't want to touch any money at all whatsoever throughout any of this. So please donate to the JCCF. I think they're a wonderful organization. They represented me for my convoy and Rolling Thunder charges. I'm really happy to be working with Chris Fleury again. We have a good rapport. I think he's a stand-up guy and an excellent lawyer. So I'm definitely heartened by the fact that they came to my defense so quickly. They reached out so quickly. I really believe in what they're doing. So by all means, donate if you are able, as generously as you are able, to the JCCF, because we really need an organization like this in Canada.
Fantastic. And yeah, we're going to be having Chris Fleury and John Carpe on in a week or so after John gets back from vacation. Marty, my last question for you is, could the government just withdraw this or not show up? And if they do, is there a way to keep this going on your front?
Well, I don't think it's debatable that Jeff has standing to challenge this order, and I don't think it's a likelihood that the court could find it moot, even if the government decides to withdraw the ticket, because Jeff has already shown that he warned the court last time. They didn't listen to him. He's here again now. He's got a $28,000 fine. Should the fine be dropped by prosecutors, that doesn't mean that a potential judicial review couldn't still advance with Jeff as the applicant there. And so I think this case is going to a hearing. We're committed to backing Jeff in his fight. He's a hero for standing up and doing this. This is what Canada needs. Canada needs Canadians who are willing to say no respectfully with that civil attitude. And actually, the humor is fantastic, Jeff, because you have to be happy warriors in this fight. It's a winning way for sure. And this case will go forward, and we'll make sure it goes.
Well, Marty, thank you very much for that clarification. Jeff, thank you so much. You are a hero. You've been a hero of mine before even this. And Peter, thanks a lot for jumping on and giving us some common sense from a firefighter's perspective, 29-year veteran of the department. Gentlemen, we got to run, but thank you very much for your time. Jeff, I'm sure we'll see you around all over the place, and come back anytime.
Yes,
Marty,
for
you
sure.
take care. Big hugs to the JCCF. And Peter, I can't wait to meet you in person one day. Gentlemen, you have yourself a great day.
Take care.
Thanks, guys.
Bye. Well, there you are. Oop, let's
Go
get
on.
the right person. We'll get there. We got there. There we go. We're still pushing these buttons. But there we are. So there's Jeff, there's Peter, and there's Marty.
Yep. No, it was great. Great wealth of information. And the chat is just loving. They just cannot wait to see what happens next. And odious hag. That is, love that term. Absolutely love that term. Odious hag.
Yeah.
But yeah, the chat was all over just wanting to see what happens. Can't wait. Wants this craziness to be dealt with.
Yeah. And we took it to our limit on the time.
Yep.
So thank you very much for providing this hour to us as well. And hopefully our audience likes this kind of format where we can bring on guests just like these three gentlemen in order to have conversations quicker than we were having before. So I really appreciate you, and I really appreciate our audience, and I really thank you all for being here today.
Yep. Have a fab day, everyone.
You want to say goodbye?
Bye.